Most welcome everyone to the 6th edition of Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you by LiRmedia.tv. My name is Siobhan Gannon. I'm founder of Embodied Soulful Living and Yoni Awakening, a journey of self-discovery for women. I am a sexual wellness and relationship coach, an intuitive healer, soul guide, self-development mentor, and life coach. And I'm passionate about educating women and girls around sexual education and also empowering women in all areas of their life. So my 6th guest is the wonderful Kathleen Comerford. And Kathleen, a friend and colleague, a fellow QTT practitioner, and she is an holistic driving instructor, and she's also qualified in Reiki, NLP and QTT. She uses these modalities to teach mindfulness techniques, as well as helping drivers who have fears and phobias, and she teaches them how to overcome those. She's passionate about teaching safe driving skills to drivers of all ages and levels, and her mission is to raise the driving test pass rate and reduce the death rate on our roads. So she's been preparing drivers for driving test success since 1999. She's author of this wonderful book that I bought when it came out, and it's Pass Your Driving Test in Ireland, a handbook for success. And she has also launched Ireland's first online driver education courses to help drivers prepare fully for the driving test. And she also has an advanced driving qualification in risk assessment. So that was huge, Kathleen, a big introduction for an amazing lady. So a real warm welcome, and delighted to have you on Women's Empowerment Hour today.
I'm delighted to be here, Siobhan. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So could you just kind of tell us a bit about your background and how you got from to where you are today as a holistic driving instructor? You don't hear about many of those.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, that kind of evolved. I was always interested in teaching, and I also love driving. So say about 25 years ago, I decided that I would merge the two. But prior to that, I was always interested. I had studied kinesiology, and then I decided maybe I was more interested in the driving instruction, but I didn't lose. So it was like that holistic side was always running parallel beside me. And then people would come to me and they were nervous, and I was thinking there's got to be something I can do to actually help them to feel calmer, you know, with visualizations and breathing and just really learning to ask the right questions. So I did study life coaching as well. And then the Reiki thing, it was just like two different parts of me always running, you know, like a dual carriageway in the same direction. Yeah. And so depending on who sat beside me, I was able to meet them at whatever level they were. Like, not everyone needed somebody to just talk them down from their nervousness, and they needed my advanced qualification because I trained with the Institute of Advanced Motorists. In fact, I worked with Hibernian Insurance for about 10 years, running driver education programs for cheaper insurance. And that's when I really saw a gap in driver education, that these people had passed their driving test, but they really didn't know things they needed to know. And they were so excited, these young guys, to learn new advanced skills in that, like, you know. So that eventually led me to writing the book then, you know.
Yeah, amazing. God, there's such a need for that, isn't there? And even when people do pass their tests, you still have those nervous drivers on the road. Me being one, I'm okay now, but I remember a couple of years ago, we were just chatting earlier about, for me, it was the motorway. You know, if you going up to Dublin, the minute you got onto there and you had people on either side, and it was, I used to go, oh, I'd feel like they were closing in on me. There was no space. So I used to get quite anxious, I remember a few years ago.
Which is understandable. Like, if you've any kind of sensitivity or any awareness around your sensitivity, if you think of that and you're just sitting in a room, but put that at 50 kilometers an hour and then put it at 120 kilometers an hour, and that sensitivity is heightened and your awareness is heightened. Like, some people don't have that, so they can just plod along and not really have that level of, I hope they know what they're doing, and I hope they know what they're doing, because I'm in the middle of both of these. And that's your awareness. And, you know, that makes you a really good driver, because mindfulness is a state of being aware and responsive to your surroundings. So it's a positive and it's a negative if you can just find the weighing scale balance between it, because not being aware isn't really a great style of driving either.
Yes, totally. Yeah, yeah. No, I love the way you explained that, because that would be exactly what I was kind of thinking. And then I kind of created a more sense of balance, knowing that I can only do what I'm doing, but to have that awareness, you know, but not to be overly focused
And to
on
trust
that.
your instincts. I think women have really good instincts, and just know that you've decided to slow down and you don't know why, but all of a sudden you see a reason like 2 minutes later. Most crashes happen 5 minutes back the road.
Yeah.
In terms of how you've come up to that situation. And you might have a little inkling in the back of your mind or some little thing. And I always say to people, trust your instincts. That's the bottom line in your driving, that you have that awareness and use it for your own safety.
Yeah. And I just talked about a lot there. You're on about like trusting your instincts or your gut, but also like you have a lot of people driving around there that are totally ungrounded.
Yeah, well, a lot of people that come to me and they might have failed their driving test, like I've had 11 failed, somebody who failed their driving test 11 times. And for him, he had no connection with the road whatsoever. He was just going through loops in his head about things he needed to do, almost like it was learnt off. So for him, it was an academic exercise, because people have different ways in which they approach life. And if someone can be black and white in their thinking, then my job is to just open up the color spectrum for them and get them to see that driving actually needs to be creative. And he had failed because he wasn't allowing that side of him to be creative. He was just being very black and white. I go slow, I go fast. And it had nothing got to do with like, well, what's actually happening on the road ahead.
Yeah.
So once I connected with the road, I use a skill called commentary drive, which means you talk about the traffic lights are green, they might change, who's behind me, will it be safer for me to stop or keep going? There's a car at the junction ahead, will they pull out in front of me? So you're continuously connected with the road, you're conscious of it, your surroundings, and then you have to make a proactive rather than reactive decision around it.
Yeah. God. So that's the kind of work you would do with people. If somebody came, yeah. And is this?
I do that with everyone. I teach everyone, no matter what level they're at, they don't have to be nervous driver. For me, commentary drive is how you drive safely. And if you drive safely, RSA stands for road safety, then you pass your driving test. And I want everyone to pass their driving test.
Yeah. And even the way you're talking about driving, like you ever hear in life, you know, be in the driver's seat of your own life and all of that. So, I mean, bringing that holistic and the mindfulness, like you can bring that into all areas of your life, really, if you're aware of how you actually drive as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think we drive how we are.
Yeah.
So my job, as soon as I can, is to tune in with who is this person. And sometimes they don't even know where they are, that I almost have to ask the right questions to help them to realize. I remember one woman, I kept saying to her, like, she had failed her test and she said her husband was saying she drives too fast in situations where things are kind of dangerous. And I was saying, would you be feeling pressure from behind or anything like that? And she was like, because that was my gut instinct sitting in the car. That was what I was feeling from her. And she was saying, no, not at all. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm randomly trying to go through another list in my head. And then the next day she came back to me and she said, it wasn't until after I started driving that when you said that to me, that I realized that's exactly why I'm doing it. I'm feeling like I can't slow down the people behind. I can't be responsible for everyone. I just need to get through and get on with it.
Yeah.
And that was a huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, is like, I can hold a mirror up to people sometimes, but I can't make them see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when she did, she went on and she passed her driving test because her speed began to match the environment in which she was driving, not trying to keep, as I said to her, you can't keep everybody happy. And like, the only opinion you should be interested in is your own opinion and not anybody else's. And that if you're looking for validation, even last night I had like a 40-year-old woman who I could feel she was feeling awful pressure from the traffic behind, and she kept looking behind at the most inappropriate times, even when she was turning right, when she needed to be looking where she was going. And I said to her, I feel you're looking behind for some kind of validation from them. And she said, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I said, you need to look in the mirror for that. I said, your own mirror at home when you're not driving. And she loved it. She said,
Yeah.
I can't wait to go home and look in the mirror and say, you're a great driver.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I just feel like what's going on for me even here, but knowledge is power. So, well, I'm kind of just looking, kind of myself in the driver's seat.
It really is a power dynamic. I really feel that clarity can help you. You can know the right thing, but if you really feel that you're not in control, and then you don't belong there, or someone's better than you, then you're losing that power, and it's just dripping out of you. And even when the tester sits into the car, I always say to people, you're not there to please the tester. He's there, or she's there, to witness your ability to drive in any environment for 30 minutes and make a safe decision. And that's why I usually encourage parents not to make the decisions for their teenagers when they're driving. They can help them and encourage them, but don't say to them, go now. Ask them, do you think it's safe to go? Because they need to start making those informed decisions themselves and building up that decision making so they'll know when to go. Then, okay,
that's a great thing, because I'm actually fronting my eldest lady is looking to start driving lessons. She's already got me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've put it off for ages. So it's a good thing about asking what you think, as opposed to saying, because I remember when I learned to drive, my mother had taken me out, and it was actually, my mother just let me drive. She never told me, actually now that I'm looking at it, it's quite amazing. She just kind of just let me drive. And
she assumed you knew what you were doing, which is a huge.
I didn't, but I must have. I just kind of done it. But if you look at it,
I find amazing. You wouldn't do that. To me, it's a newborn baby sitting beside you when they don't have to drive, and you wouldn't let your newborn baby go off down the road and say, "Let me know how you get on." You mind them and hold them and help them, and that's what I would like parents to do, because I only get them for 1 hour. Maximum then 12, but then you have to guide them and help them the rest of the way,
And if I remember going back, you see a lot of parents then, I remember our partners actually, because I remember my ex-partner, and I couldn't deal with it. Every 2 minutes he was telling me what to do.
That's a power dynamic. That's like why does somebody feel they can tell you how to drive?
Yeah, but that's so long ago now, but I'm just thinking, actually, when I went for my test, before I went for my test, my driving instructor, he used to come and actually take the wheel and move it while I was driving, or actually do so it's
Yeah. And see, I disagree with that. And I mean, again, even that woman last night, she had failed her driving test because some driving instructors, they teach you to perform on the day of the test. And I disagree with that, because I tell her, you're not looking for an Oscar. This is not Broadway or Hollywood. You're looking because you don't want to die and you don't want to kill anybody. And then you go, and she's like, oh my God. But she said, you know what? It makes sense. She said, I feel so much calmer. I could feel her nervous system going down, because she was randomly doing all of these dramatic things at the wrong time for no reason whatsoever, except she felt that it would impress me. And I said, I'm not impressed.
And also, Kathleen, also, if you think about it, it's not just a 1 hour thing you get to, it's a lifetime. You're going to be driving for the rest of your life. So no wonder people pass their test, but then go forward and still have all of these anxieties, fears, and phobias. Because it's all about learning just to pass that test in that hour, and you've got it. And then you have young motorists coming on. And I was saying to you earlier, say now my young fella's going to do his theory test, and the eldest has done hers. So she's, they're all getting ready now to get in the driving seat. And I'm thinking, oh my God, because then you kind of have to, they're going to be going out driving on their own at some stage. So there'll be sometimes a lot of, around safety and being responsible in the car as well. And I know a lot of parents feel that way as well once their kids get out on the road, just wanting to have awareness of their surroundings, other people, and to drive safely as well, so it's
a huge rite of passage, and it is almost like growing into your own independence. And like I've had it with my nieces and nephews, and I've really felt that it's like, but to me, the most important thing you can do is, while you have them, teach them and tell them as much as you can. Like I can still hear my father in my head telling me there's a dangerous bend up ahead, and that's probably 30 something years ago, maybe, yeah, like at least 35 years ago. So if you just say the right little thing at that right moment, it'll stay with them. Because I have people who would have passed their test. I remember meeting a woman recently, and she said, I can still hear you in my head when I'm driving. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she said, it's wonderful. You tell me all the right things at the right time, because there is a timing thing about it, like, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, before you come up to something, just to encourage them to slow down, because there's this myth that there's no time in the world, whereas in driving, everything you need is time. You know, it's really, really important, you know.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, actually. So, I mean, even for parents, knowing that this is available, you know, especially ones that are be very nervous, you know, or, you know, and the kids are deciding they're driving regardless. Mine are pretty, I'm not too worried about them in that way now. They're pretty responsible. But, you know, some parents going out and not wanting, not feeling maybe that the child's responsible in that way, but that they can actually get to pass the test. But afterwards, how do they go on? It's a great comfort even to know that there is this available as well, where you're looking kind of outside the box, aren't you? You're not just looking at it from that perspective, that old way. So there's a whole new energy around driving. It's amazing. It's amazing what you're bringing forward there and what you created.
They say a puppy is for life, not just for Christmas, whereas I'd say driving is for life, it's not just for your driving test. And you do yourself a disservice if you think that you've to learn something off, because it's not academic, and sometimes people are approaching it. And I do think the RSA system is flawed in that it has approached it like, do your 12 hours and do your driving test. And that doesn't exist. You cannot do your driving test with 12 hours of driving. You need to do the practice in between. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I drove for at least a year and a half before I did my driving test. What about you?
Oh God, it's so long ago. I don't remember. It was a while. It was a while. Yeah, it was.
So but I would encourage you to bring your children out and practice and build up experience, because to me, the most important thing is experience and practice. That's what's going to help you pass your driving test.
And the practice is embodying it. So it's you're in body when you're driving. You're not just from the head. You're actually integrating it in.
It has to become muscle memory. It has to go into the long run. And that can only happen by repetition. And if you think about it, like, I would love driving to be brought front and center, like your hurling, your football, your rugby, your piano lessons, your swimming. How many times did your children practice all of those things to get good at it? And like, if you look at it academically, the driving test is the very last thing you do. So it's not your intercert, it's not your leaving cert, it's not even college, it's a master's. Because it's the last thing that you do. So they're the layers. So before you send your child or your teenager in to do the driving test, really decide, are they at the level where they would complete a master's in driving?
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of talking about there earlier, because, you know, whether they're at that responsible stage as well, and they're going to take it seriously, and it's not just to kind of get behind the wheel and have your thing. So yeah, that's amazing. So, so can you give me kind of, or just give people kind of an idea of, you know, I suppose your personal experience. We were talking about, I was on about a roundabout, say a few years ago now, but I remember having a bit of an accident in a roundabout on the way to Dublin, and then it was after coming off the motorway again. So roundabouts are, I know one of my sisters, just one roundabout down in Cork, and she failed 4 times on the same one. So, you know, things are changing a little bit now. But people do get panicked when they come up to roundabouts. I know my parents would as well. My elderly dad, like, you know, he would, God, if he heard me call me elderly, but often coming up to, if you were driving with him and it coming up to a roundabout, oh my God, the language coming out of him would be, because he'd panic. because everything's so fast and you're only waiting your turn to jump on, you know. So
and this is the thing, we woke up in Ireland one morning and there was roundabouts.
Yeah.
We woke up and then you were supposed to know how to use them. So what I like to teach people and all of my students, because the mind loves to complicate things, whereas I have this, my desire is to simplify everything. So a roundabout could be a traffic light. Does that make sense to you?
It could be what?
A traffic light.
Okay, yes, yeah.
It's a junction, and instead of putting a traffic light there, they just put a circle in the road and the yield, which is like a flashing amber, and now you become the traffic light. So that means that you need to come up almost like it's red until you can look and say, do you know what? I think it's green and I can go. Whereas everyone comes up as if it's green and then they're like, oh my God. And they become frantic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you treat the roundabout like a red traffic light, come up slow, but be looking to go. It's a completely different energy and it's a completely different result as well.
And I think I actually do that now, just as you're saying it, I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of the way I approach it now. But before it was, when I often sit in, you know, people who are panicking or whatever, it's like, yeah, you know, just to kind of stop and go, and will I go? But that's a great way to explain it as well. So,
and you see, it is harder to get onto a roundabout when you're stopped because they are coming fast and they have the advantage, because once the wheels are moving in a car, you have the advantage, like, you know.
Yes, yeah.
But I always say to people, for your test or for life, you'll never be sorry you didn't go.
So again,
you'll never be sorry that you didn't pull out, but you might be sorry you did.
Oh yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
Like always err on the side of caution.
Yeah, perfect. And you were telling me then you had a bit of a, so from your own experience roundabouts, did you have
No, one of the reasons that how we ended up like in QTT and things like that is that I was driving on a motorway probably about maybe 18 years ago, and they used to have the toll bridge on the M50, and I was just coming right up to the booth, and then a truck decided to quickly, because you see, anytime you do anything quickly, change lane, and he didn't see me because I was in his blind spot, so he crashed into me.
Oh, truck.
So I was fine, thankfully. But the next time I went on to, and it was his fault and there was no big deal and that, like, but the next time I went on to the motorway, my heart started racing and I was having a panic attack, and I had never had anything like that. I thought I was having a heart attack.
Oh, right.
So that led me to okay, I need to do something about this, because then I stopped driving on motorways. And then actually it got me to stop wanting to do lots of things, even going into supermarkets and shopping centers, or, you know, so my world started getting smaller and smaller. Now, since I did QTT and all of that, I understand that my subconscious was wanting to protect me. And then I've come back out of it. But because of that, I really feel a huge empathy for anybody who has fears and phobias around driving, because I developed them as a driving instructor, which was amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And then managed to come out of it. So I love being able to help people who have that now, because I love being able to tell them I had it as well and it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful NLP and QTT and even the Healy now and all of that are great, you know?
So how would you, can you give an example of how you would help somebody who came to you with, say, anxiety or behind the wheel kind of thing?
Like
in general, even.
Well, generally, the best thing to do is to do like the online thing, or to do an office thing, because I can't do, you know, like the QTT session where you're working through the subconscious and trying to identify the meaning and the pattern that's running. That can't happen while they're driving the car.
Yeah.
So I would do 2 sessions, either online or in my office here. But since COVID, it's mainly online. And actually, since COVID, a lot of people who would have been ignoring driving and not thinking it's a big thing, now their fears of being on public transport is bigger than their fear of driving. So they've come to me to get over their fear of driving because they want to be in their own car.
Oh my God. But, you know, after not going very far, like, you know, I live out in Connemara, so not going very far in the last, say, year and a half. I remember when I got back into the car again, feeling really weird and not very confident actually from just not going into the city, into Galway city. And now that everything started to reopen again and the place is thronged with traffic, I mean, people must be kind of in between, you know, kind of just settling back in again in driving. I can't even imagine go past there now at the moment. You know, so I'd say there's so many fears and stuff coming up again.
Well, we're creatures of habit, and like our habits, we can get out of the habit of something and get confident with our driving, and then when we couldn't drive, that can just come right back, you know. But then, so it's really all about developing habits and practicing and just extending your comfort zone a little bit and not making it a big thing, like chunking it down like we would do in life coaching. Just like I have one woman in particular who just can't drive to a particular town that's only like 10 miles up the road from her. So like I'd say we were working, it's like go quarter of the way there and come back, and then go half of the way there and come back. And thankfully last weekend she contacted me and said she made it.
Amazing, yeah.
And she was delighted. Do you see? So that's what it is. It's like disconnecting from the emotion, but then actually getting your brain and your conscious pattern to actually then extend the elastic band and to just build up. It's like a muscle. You've got to build it up gradually sometimes, really, rather than thrown, you know, that big jump and thinking, will you make it, you know?
Yeah, because when you're looking at the big jump and you're coming from the place of where you are, it can be too overwhelming on the nervous system.
Yeah. And that's when people don't do it.
That's when people give up.
That's when they give, like she had given up completely, but she saw me on something or other and she contacted me, and I'm saying, if it's 10 miles, let's do 3, 6, 9. Do you know what I mean? And she's like, oh my God, I could do that. And it's like, there you go.
Yeah.
And they can be silly things. Like I've had people who were terrified of leaves on the road, or, you know, afraid. Like, so there's no judgment. Anyone can come to me with any kind of fear, because it's just something you decided to put meaning on. And like, another woman found it difficult to drive around particular bends and that. But then as it happened, in one of the sessions that we were doing, we went back to a memory where her dad was a drunk driver and he used to crash into ditches going around bends.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
So, you know, so we come from, like, we're not far removed from drinking and driving, and, you know, there's lots of patterns from the past and that you're carrying even as a child before you get behind the wheel, and you don't even know that that's what's running in the background. So it is quite complex, but it's very interesting. And even the people that I'm working with are just amazed that what they don't realize that is holding them back.
And of course, even if it doesn't matter how many years ago, it's real in the body, because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's past memory and what's happening now. So it does feel like it's happening now, and then people are repeating in different areas of their life, and you see it there in driving. But I mean, to offer all of that as a driving instructor and all of that package, like, it's just phenomenal. It's amazing to be offering this.
Well, it just evolved, really. And I mean, it grew more from my own experience and from my own place of thinking, how do I get out of this anxiety? How do I recover from it?
I know, but it's massive. Do you see how massive it is? Like,
maybe I don't. No, sorry, I don't.
Yeah, well, it is like when you kind of just step out a bit and see, like, this is a massive thing you're offering, and really awakening people up to that, because, you know, and all areas of their life, really, from the driving seat.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love driving, and I think it just opens the whole world up. And I even remember a few years ago, this woman contacted me, and she was 68 years of age, and she said when she was around 17, she started driving, and she was mad for it and all excited. And then her driving instructor said some little thing to her, and it completely put her off. And then for the rest of her life, she never drove, and got on a bus and went into work and all of that, and promised herself when she retired at 65, she would learn how to drive. And then it took her until 68, and then she saw my website and then thought she might be able to help me. And you know what? When she sat in that car beside me and started to drive, she was a 17-year-old again. The energy of her, I couldn't get her to slow down. I'd be saying, would you slow down? And she's like, I've been waiting all my life to do this.
Oh my God, that's so nice.
And the funny thing is, she failed for going too fast. And I'd say the tester was looking at her, and I was saying, how do I get this 68-year-old to stop being a 17-year-old?
Oh my God.
And
She just went right back into that space. That's where she left off. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was amazing to see. And like, I was just like, almost like her mother telling her to slow down. And when she came out, she said to me, you were right. The tester said I go a bit fast. And then she took it on board, which is kind of like what you'd expect a 17-year-old child to behave like. I'm not going to listen to you, but I'll listen to someone else. So she went on then and passed her driving test when she was 70. And then she could drive and visit her mother in a nursing home. She was so independent. It completely changed her life. I met her down in the shops recently, and she says, I think of you every day when I get in my car. And you know, it's really touching.
I know, I'm feeling that. That's amazing.
Yeah, like to think that you opened up the world. Well, I mean, I helped her. She was ready for it. Like, but I just love that she found me and that I could help her.
But after how many years? Yeah, she must have been ready. But I mean, what a shame that happened then. That so many years she didn't. But yeah,
shame can be a very huge thing with people, because Siobhan, it's like even if you fail your test, like there's almost like a not good enoughness with that.
I know it's the head hung in shame after, did you pass your test? No, first, it's always a first time thing, isn't there, on the driving test?
I have an amazing story that I can tell you about a woman who came to me again a good few years ago, and she told me that when she did her driving test and she failed, and she was probably only 18, she was so ashamed that she went home and she told everyone she passed. And then got caught up in that lie to the point that she got married, she had kids, her husband thought that she had a full license. The only time it became an issue was when they would go on holidays and she couldn't drive abroad because she was on a provisional. She took care of her own learner permit, her own insurance. She kept it all and she could keep that parallel thing. But then he got a job abroad and they were going to move. And she found me online and thought, she was in a panic, and she's like, I have to pass my driving test and I'm absolutely terrified because I've avoided it for years.
Wow.
And my God, the shame and the life that she had lived to keep that up. And, I actually felt it was too much for her to cope with. And I said to her, I can't tell you what to do. I will help you every way I can. But I do feel you need your husband's support in this. And I think, again, I can't make you, but I do think you should go home and talk to him and tell him. And she didn't really want to, but eventually she came back and she said she did. And he was so relieved because he thought she was going to leave him because he knew something was going on. Imagine. And he's like, oh, you don't have your full license. Like, that's no big deal. I thought you were going to leave me, that you didn't. Yeah. So she came, we did the lessons, she went and passed her driving test. But that's what I'm saying, like, I have so many stories, and so, like,
keep going. This is so interesting. God, it's amazing what people do.
And that's the thing, is that it's the meaning you put on it, that you decide that just because for half an hour at one day in time it didn't all come together for you, that you put the meaning that that's everything gone, that you're no good. Like, this man came to me, he was a top CEO in a company, big huge Mercedes car, and he contacted me and said that he had failed his driving test 30 years ago and he could not bear the thought of going back to do it. And I couldn't even get him to drive into the test centre. That's how scared he was.
God, I didn't realise it was that big, like, for people. It's just amazing. Obviously,
it's the meaning they put on it. A lot of people have a fear of failure, Siobhan, and once it's a really big thing.
Most people would have it on some level for some things. It's just ingrained in you, isn't it?
It is, but if you're competitive, or if you let it identify who you are, then that becomes all of it then. So you don't want to go back and visit that.
Yes, yeah, totally good.
And that's the thing. So again, a little bit of work and NLP. I hadn't done QTT at that stage, and that's why I kept searching, because I kept thinking there's deeper layers. Like, these people are just coming out of the woodwork, and it's so much deeper, and it's gone back so much further.
Yeah.
That I really wanted to upskill. So I'm delighted to have all of those different modalities, like, to help people.
How you integrate it.
Yeah, outside the car and then inside the car, and then get to pass their test, because it is such an amazing rite of passage, like, you know.
Yeah, totally. So can you talk a little bit more about the online course?
About the what?
The online course.
Oh yeah, well, the online course that I put together then, so that's going back to, I believe there's a huge gap for driver education in Ireland. Like, you've got 2 teenagers now who want to learn how to drive, and you're going to hope that they get a really good instructor that will give them a foundation, and then you're going to bring them out and hope that they can integrate all of that. And yet teenagers are very different now, roads are very different now, cars are very different, and I believe that the most important safety feature in your car is actually your brain. And I believe the more your brain, clarity in your brain will help you to drive safely. And that, I know when I'm sitting giving a lesson to somebody and they're really nervous and they've never moved a car, they can't hear everything that I'm saying. They can't process it, and then they can't follow it through. And then they're going to sit in a car with you, and you might say something different, and between 2 stools you fall, basically.
Yeah.
So my video tutorials then are of, I got somebody to drive behind my car. So it's visual learning. We all learn by example.
Yeah.
So you get to see me, my car, doing what needs to be done, and then you can actually memorize that and go, oh, that's how you do it. That's how you slow down, and that's how you change lane. And there's like visuals with it and subtitles. And it's, so I've got a course for the 12 EDT driving lessons to support the learners, to support the parents. Yeah. And then I've got another course, which is a breakdown of all 18 sections of the driving test report sheet. So it's kind of like you do all the subjects in your leaving cert, and in your driving test, there's 18 subjects. There's the mirrors, observation, position, reverse, turnabout, sufficient clearance. There's loads of information. And I say to people, I can't teach that to you in the 12 hours where I'm trying to teach you how to drive.
Yeah.
It's not possible. I can't do it.
Yes.
So now there's an online course, and then the book will go with that as well. So then
I'll definitely be getting that, because I've got 3 to go down the so
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and just have that support there as well. I think that sounds amazing, actually. Yeah, sounds amazing to me.
And then the Fear of Driving program then is done online, and it's all on my website, like, you know. So
yeah.
I just love being able to facilitate all levels of driving at different stages.
Yeah.
And just for everyone to believe that there is support there for them, and that people who might have been avoiding their driving test for years, because recently there was an article that said 21,000 drivers in Ireland are on their learner permits for the last 10 years. And like, that's only because they fell through the cracks. And what I'm looking to do is not have young drivers now falling through the cracks.
And why do you think they fell through the cracks?
Well, they fell through the cracks because a lot of the time, anyone who contacts me, it's like they want to do the 12 hours, but it's like, do you have a car to practice in? Are you going to go and do your test? Or they just do the 12 hours and then there's nothing. They've had no car to practice. They're not good enough to do their test. So there's no plan in place.
Yeah.
So like, I would love insurance companies to get involved and help parents to have cheaper insurance, and the kids could get on board and they could all go out and practice, and it would just be easy, that it would just all slot in. They go through the system like they go through the education system or the different levels of hurling, football and rugby. Like, it's just all structure that's missing.
Yes, yeah.
It's quite doable. And that's what I don't like, is at some point they just fell off the crack because they didn't have the structures in place to keep them going.
Yeah, well, no better woman to do it, Kathleen.
Well, now, it takes the village, Siobhan, that's what I said. So I'm just part of the village, but I want everyone involved.
Well, you're the trailblazer, so embrace it.
Well, I'll embrace it.
Yeah, because it takes a village, but it takes one person to step out and start the process.
Well, yeah, that is true. Like,
and you're definitely doing that. You're definitely doing that.
I just know how much it hurts these people when they fail. Like, I have felt that pain of those people sitting beside me, you know, and like somebody who's failed their test 12 times, like there's just no excuse for it. It's like, it's not that there's no excuse, there's no reason for it, because
it's soul destroying. Could you imagine 12 times? You know, oh my God.
I remember this woman coming to me, and she was up about 5, and I was saying, like, come on now, we're not going to go, Annie, you're not going, you know, she had never come to me, and I was saying, look, but she gets really nervous, and she was one of those really hyper people, which she was great fun in the car, but that's no good when it comes to the driving test, you know. And I could feel her getting hyper again, even though we had done lots of techniques. And I was sitting in the car with her before we went in to do the test, and I said, look, what's the worst thing that can happen here is you're going to fail your driving test. But that's already happened, and the world didn't end, and you didn't lose your job, and they didn't take the car off you, and they didn't take your 2 children away. And she said, I wonder would they take the 2 kids away just for
Oh my God.
But you know what? That kind of talk before the test, we were laughing, and she went in, and it distracted her, and she went and passed her driving test.
There you go. Because we were talking earlier just before it came on, but that relaxes a person into their body. So then they're more relaxed, nervous systems more regulated, and they're actually better aware of their surroundings, and the gut's working properly as well. So you know when to stop, and you know you're grounded. So yeah, it makes a huge difference.
And that's where the simple technique, like if I was just to encourage people, all drivers, maybe to just do 2 things, it would be, number 1, look further up the road. Because you're going up the road. Like even the woman last night, she said, you want me to look all the way up there? And it's like, really, it wasn't that far. But one time a woman told me she could see her wipers when she was looking.
Okay.
So she was terrified of driving, and I'm like, I'm not surprised, because everything is happening to you. It's all coming at you, and you've no time to process it. So when you look like to the horizon and you see the traffic lights up ahead, and then you think, I wonder, will they change? And then you wonder who's behind you. You've got all this time to process, and your nervous system relaxes, and you can sit back and say, oh, I'd say now they might change. I'll just check behind. I'll tip the brake a little bit. You're totally in control. And then the second thing I would encourage people to do is to leave space in front of them so you can actually see the road.
Oh my God, there's nothing worse than somebody on your tail.
I just often wonder about that. And when
I totally forgot about that. That just drives me. The way I work now is energetically, I create the space behind me, and suddenly they slow down. There's nothing worse than somebody pushing from behind like that. It's really not on.
And that's what I think is funny with all the social distancing from COVID, that people wouldn't apply the same principle to your car. Because seriously, you might catch the virus if you're too close, but like, I wonder what you'd catch if you're too close driving to the back of me, and you've left no room for me to brake safely.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people, that actually stops them driving. Like I had a woman where something like that happened, and even I think it was just somebody beeped at her.
Yeah.
And she got out of her car, and she never got in for 10 years. And she taxed it and insured it. And she had twins, and she dragged them all over Dublin on a bus and didn't tell anyone she wasn't driving her car. Here's the shame thing again.
Right.
And then even couldn't arrange play dates with the kids and the parents because she couldn't carpool, because none of them knew that she wasn't.
I mean, the freedom of being able to drive, like in all areas of your life, like, yeah.
And again, the simple idea that she put so much meaning on someone beeping a horn. And all I ever tell people is, if someone beeps the horn at you, it means they're rude. That's all.
Well, I mustn't be rude, Kathleen, because there's one thing that anytime somebody does something in front of me, it's like I say afterwards, why didn't I beep the horn? I never beep the horn.
Yeah, but because, well, the horn is in your car to alert people to danger. So it's not in your car to give out to people.
Yeah, but people do it all the time, like. you know,
So
the road rage,
and I
I
mean,
suppose, is a big thing as well, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, but that whole idea, then the second thing is just to leave space. And like when people are so close to you like that, scientifically, at 50 kilometers an hour, it takes 25 meters to stop a car safely. Now, I don't do numbers, I do visuals. And visually, 25 meters is the length of a tennis court.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then if you're on a motorway on a dry day, it takes the length of Crow Park.
Oh, Christ. Well, I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Well, it cannot, but you see, you're only responsible for yourself, Siobhan. So
Yeah.
yes, it is going to happen if you do it.
Yeah.
And if someone pulls in front of you and you take responsibility for either going out and overtaking them or just allowing that space. Because you do it with COVID. If someone's too close to you, you don't want to catch the virus.
Yeah, and actually what I do, if somebody, you know, you have people coming up behind you, the dogs in a hurry or whatever, and kids are always laughing at me, they're calling me Speedy Gonzalez because they say I'm slow. I got a driving ticket once, but they actually came back to me and said it was a speeding ticket once, and they came back to me and said it was a mistake.
There you go.
And God did I show them. Yes, there you go now, kids. There you calling me Speedy Gonzalez.
But are you driving within your comfort zone, or why are they calling you? Why are they thinking you're slow?
Because people tend to pass out, but I just slow down. If somebody wants to pass me, I'll slow the car down and let them pass. Whereas other people kind of keep going and they're not aware. I'm just aware there's somebody behind. They're annoying me from behind. So I'm going at the pace I want to go. So I'll slow down and let them go. So they're looking really at the car, you know, they're kind of making a joke, but they're looking really, I suppose, at the cars that are passing out. Because sometimes I'm just driving at my own pace, like, and I'm happy out and I'm not in a hurry. And, you know, so, and I'm not as if because you can drive too slow. That can be an issue as well. I always used to say to my mom, you know, just because you drive like a snail, that's just as dangerous as driving too fast. Yeah, but I'd be, these are people now that, you know, in a hurry, lots of people drive pretty fast.
Oh yeah, some people don't want to do the speed limit, and some people, they don't want a car in front of them. And I always say to people, sometimes no matter what you do, you can't please the car behind because they actually don't want you to be there.
You only meet them at the traffic lights later and they're still in the same place. They haven't got any further.
I tip my hat and I say,
hi, how are you?
I'll see you at the next set of traffic lights. And
totally, you know? I do the same thing. And then we come up and we're all laughing in the car because the person's beside and they're kind of looking the other way then because they've done a big ring around 3 or 4 cars dangerously, like.
Dangerously over.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing is, a lot of people can put meaning on that and think that they've done something wrong when somebody overtakes them, like, you know, lots of my but lots of my learners.
I know,
I mean, you mightn't really be sensitive or vulnerable normally, but then when you sit behind a car and you're responsible and you're feeling all of that, the slightest little thing of something outside of that can really get heightened, Siobhan, to the level.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I get that.
It actually can go deeper than anything else would, you know. So that's where I am always minding them and saying, now, did you mind that he passed you out? Because I want you to know you did nothing wrong there, and that if I was driving, he would be passing me out as well.
Yeah, that's great. It's great you do it that way, and you just highlight.
And like, do you meet people in work that you don't like? Well, that's him driving home. So you identify it as that not everyone's out to get you, and not everyone is out to support you either.
Yeah, I love the way you just bring the two of them together and integrate them so easily. Just to bring it back there, when you were on about the woman just seeing the windscreen as well, if you think about it even from life, you know, you have to have a goal in mind as well and your future. So it just shows like not being expansive. And if you're not noticing what's around you, if you're not expanding, you're not, you know, peripheral vision as well. So it just shows like when people are so stuck and constricted in like that, it makes perfect sense to be looking ahead on the road. So you know where you're going, you have your route, you have your thing, but you're also seeing either side of you as well. Like,
But not many people want to do that.
Yeah, because again, anxiety, sometimes people's fear of the future, when, you know, they often equate being depressed with memories from the past or stuff like that. But anxiety, energy been around, you know, fear of the future and the unknown.
And all of that mirror work exaggerated. It's only looking behind. And I'm saying, like, really, even to that woman last night, I was saying, you need to look where you're going and not where you've been. You need to really look where you're going and just check where you're being. Whereas she was more interested in who's behind me, what did they think of me, am I doing okay? And
yeah, God, it goes.
being really nervous and not paying attention to. And so I was counterbalancing by, oh, look at the traffic lights ahead. And she's like, I wouldn't be looking that far up the road. And like, I was only going halfway up to where I would be normally looking. But it was just to coax her attention. But like by the end of the lesson, she was saying, I can't believe how much calmer I feel. And I said to her, that's because your nervous system is now getting the information it needs in order to reduce your stress levels. And you're beginning to feel like, I'm comfortable, I'm in control, I know what's happening, I've time to make decisions. So the lifting the vision and the taking the time were the two key elements to her having a huge transformation in her driving.
Yeah, and then it's filtering into other areas of her life naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I don't tell them that. I can't be telling them that now as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that the offering that you won't get with any other driving instructor? Well, unless there's a few out there, I don't know. Is there other people that work? I don't
know if anyone have all of these qualifications. Like lots of driving schools would say that they help nervous drivers, but I don't know to what
not
level
like this.
they
No,
would
this
be
is
qualified.
a new level of awareness altogether. It's amazing. And listen, so God, we could talk all day. So you've loads of stories.
I know, it's great. I actually feel I should write a book about the experiences of a driving instructor, because I think it would be lovely for other people to read something like with that book, it really just had to be about the driving test, because that's what everyone's interested in. Now, I did put little bits about, after every section, I put fears people might have and put in little bits of cures, little bits of tips, because at any level, I wanted to be able to reach people who would even have fears doing the driving test and that, like, you know. But yeah, it's just, it's the idea of writing a book then that people could read and go, oh my God, I'm not the only one, you know.
I think that'd be fabulous. Yeah, it's your new book now. Next chapter. So it's amazing been having you. And so just quickly again, a couple of tips for people watching around safe driving.
Okay, so like for anyone who's a driver, the more you look up the road on a motorway, in town, the sooner you see a brake light, the sooner you put that brake light on your car and send it back. The domino effect is we're all creating time and space. So no one's going to be hitting into each other. Yeah. And then to just keep, what I always teach my students is there's an airbag in your steering wheel that will come out in the event of a crash. I encourage them to never have that come out, because they have an airbag around their car. So they create a safety bubble. So you never go too close to anything in front, you never go too close to anything at the sides, and you use your brake lights to communicate with people behind.
That's a great way of bringing the kind of practicality of the airbag into kind of the energy bubble around you as well. It's perfect. Yeah. I'll be using that, Kathleen. Good. I'd have my kind of book, but airbag thing. I love the practical as well, bringing in the physical there.
Well, I'm trying to deal with all different types of brains. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And there's people who are visual. So it's just to match it all together and to simplify it. I'm a huge believer in things being simple, safe, simple, the end, like, you know. And lots of times why people fail their driving test is they overcomplicate it in their brain. They think it's difficult.
Yeah.
Whereas it isn't actually that difficult to drive safely if you just keep it simple, you know.
So you're going to do you have something to offer there as well for anybody watching as well? So
oh yeah, well, I have an ongoing offer at the moment for people because of COVID and the backlog, and because people are frantically trying to get to do their driving test, and that what they maybe aren't aware of is that every year, despite COVID and long before COVID, 45% of drivers fail their driving test.
Right.
So there was already a backlog. Imagine like 45% of Leaving Cert students failing their Leaving Cert. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I wrote the book in 2018, was to try and get people to get through it and come out the other side. because that's the right way of going about it. And then the online course was the next level to do that, because that was, I think, 64,000 people failed in 2018.
Wow.
64,000, 71,000 passed. So now you put COVID in on top of that, this is going to be a bigger backlog. So I'm all for people preparation, and then preparation, and then you pass your driving test.
Yeah, totally.
So the package then I'm offering is called the Ultimate Driving Test Package. So you get the online course, access to it for 2 weeks. You get a copy of my book, also my ebook, which is 101 tips, which is easy acronyms to remember. The top 50 questions on the rules of the road that the tester asks you before you go out driving. And then a 15-minute phone consultation with me, so I can just get into your head and see if there's anything that might be bothering you, and we can tweak it before you go and do your test. And that's all just for €60.
Wow. God, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Jesus, well, that's amazing. Yeah.
Because I want people to pass the driving test. It's been my mission for the last 20 years, so it hasn't changed.
Yeah, and I can feel your passion for it as well, and I think it's amazing and really much needed. I'm sure anybody watching this is going to have so many light bulbs.
Yeah. And then anyone who has any fears or phobias and things like that, like I do run a program, but I would always do a 15-minute kind of consultation with them for free first to see where they're at. They might be ready or they mightn't be ready, or there might be things they need to do before we get them on to the
I would feel 100% comfortable and trust you to bring me to that place for definite.
But sometimes people have to be ready, like that they have to have a car to practice. Do you know what I mean? There's no point in us doing the online stuff and that they can't get into a car and then go out, like that woman who needed to go to that town 10 miles up the road. She could do the session with me, agree to go out the next day, go 3 miles up the road, come back, and then have those little milestones done.
Yeah, and she was committed and ready. Yeah,
committed.
To take even the first steps and that. 100%. Yeah. So Kathleen, any of that information anyway will be connected to the program here. And what's
my website as well? My website is called.
I'll ask you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's very simple. It's called ipassmydrivingtest.ie.
Okay, ipassmydrivingtest.ie. So listen, thanks so much. You've been a wealth of knowledge and information, and always lovely to chat. You always make me laugh.
Thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'm excited for everybody who gets to work with you, because it's just an amazing thing you offer, and I don't even know, do you realize how much is needed? You could potentially change the whole driving way in this country as well, and I feel you're going to do that.
I would love to get driver education into schools. I would love
that's where
I would love it to be part of the education system, so that it's just done and dusted,
I think you're well on the way.
Well, fingers crossed, isn't that it?
You're well on the way. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye now.
Bye.